Welcome to the ThunderCast, your martial athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. Follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. Head to Facebook, give the page over there a like. Also, click the links in the description so you can follow us on all of our social media accounts. And I'm going to keep banging this drum because I think it's really worthwhile. You know, if you're using Spotify or something like that, that's great. But you really need to give that YouTube app a try, because what I learned is, you know, the Inside the Thunder was a video only, like YouTube exclusive. Well, on the YouTube Music app, you're able to listen to those via audio. So you don't have to necessarily be in front of a screen. You can run that right through your car stereo only on the YouTube Music app. So there's another way to consume those episodes audio only. Russ, it was a massively busy week in Herd Athletics. We had SBC championships, tournaments. There was some accolades being handed out, and we've got a lot more other stuff to talk about outside of those things. So we need to get into this. We've got a ton we have to cover. We're going to sum up the portal up to this point, football recruiting wise, and then some other news and notes. So let's get it going. First off, with a quick word from our sponsors at 304carwreck.com. If you've been injured in a car wreck, visit 304carwreck.com on the web or on Facebook. What happens when an Ohio driver crashes into a West Virginia driver in Kentucky? That can be a mess. But if you can dream it up, Jason and Matt have probably been there, done that, and gotten their clients paid. Don't fight the insurance companies alone. Contact Jason and Matt at 304carwreck.com. Well, it is a insert odd number of things here, but let's get it rolling with at least 5 things every Herd fan needs to know this week.
All right, this week we bring you 9 things every Herd fan needs to know this week. As always, brought to you by Ignite Link, the Tri-State's premier IT management team. Number 1, who else? Macie Majoy adds to her SBC championships by winning gold in the outdoor pole vault. That adds to the indoor pole vault, where she was the first ever martial champion in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, so she's now the first 2 individual athletes to win an SBC championship. And I got to say, I'm going to pat myself on the back on that one. I called that one going in. I felt really good about that. But it was interesting, right? There was a 3-way tie atop the standings. The top 3 vaulters all nailed the same height. I think it was like 3.98 or 3.96. The caveat was Macie got it on her first attempt, and the others took more than one to get it. That's why she ultimately was crowned with the gold medal in the pole vault. And also all 3 tried at a higher height, and none were successful, obviously. So that's kind of how that one worked out. We ended up taking gold and bronze in the pole vault. So you got to think that the Herd pole vault is in, I guess, good shape for the next number of years. So congratulations to Macie Majoy. That's just awesome, man. The first 2. It was cool enough to be the first one. So now the trivia answer is extended. She's the first 2 athletes to win an individual SBC championship.
And, you know, as a team, we've still not won one. So she's the first ever of any kind, just for anyone that doesn't keep track of that. Also, number 2, Mikah Alleyne wins gold in the outdoor 400-meter hurdles and breaks the school record doing so.
I can't say that I saw that one coming. I don't think that you did. You know, we talk about track and field quite a bit, and that wasn't one of those disciplines that we thought, I think we can take this one. So she just ran a hell of a kick-ass race and came out on top. So 2 individual champions, pretty awesome. Several other, bronze, some decent team finishes, but having 2 individual champions is pretty good stuff, man. Super big time in the outdoor 400. Mikah Alleyne seemed like she was like on the cusp of making something happen, and I'm just really happy for her that she was able to capture a Sunbelt individual championship, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, and setting that that school record in the process. I mean, this is not a thing, but track and field posted the new leaderboard, and there have been, was it 9?
I think it was 9.
9 new numbers on that just happened this year, and several of those had been broken multiple times. So we're looking at probably well over a dozen different records that have been set. It's just in the category, some of them were broken more than once, because how many times do we talk about Brett breaking a record, or Abby
Kylie Maston set a couple, broke a couple of
three in a
records.
row, 3 in a row, I think. So yeah, we may be up to 20 or more records that were broken this year, but 9 new atop the leaderboard. That was impressive as well. All right, number 3, Marshall is heading to Ohio State for the 2024 football season. That will be on September 21st.
I think that's awesome. I mean, of course, we've kind of known about that for a little while, but the news came out to the fan base as a whole, and just as we had figured, that kind of sent shockwaves through the fan base a little bit. They got really excited about that, because that's one of those really marquee opportunities to go up there and make some big time noise on a national stage, as big as the win at Notre Dame was, and we're never going to diminish that.
Right.
You can't argue that going into the Horseshoe and beating Ohio State wouldn't be more impressive, because it would be.
Yeah.
It would be.
As impressive as it would have been. I was up there in 2004, and we almost won that game famously. As impressive as it would have been back then, college landscape has changed so much to where Ohio State, even though they have always been that blue blood, right, it has just changed so much more that those top 3 to 5 teams that you see every year, beating them, especially at their house, means a lot more than it did 20 years ago.
Yeah, the gap between the haves, the kind of haves, and the have-nots is just so big. Doing it in 2004 would have been huge. Doing it in 2024 will be nothing short of monumental.
Yeah.
And just as we took down Notre Dame last year, nothing is out of the realm of possibility, because you don't know what can happen, right? Marshall can catch lightning in a bottle and, put together another fine performance like we saw in South Bend, create a few turnovers here and there, cause an injury and knock starting quarterback out of the game. And you never know, right? It's just one of those things. But man, there is no better opportunity to put your school on the map immediately for any given football season than to go into Columbus, Ohio and get a win.
Agreed. I mean, if you could come up with a top 5 right now, I think Ohio State would be in it. Of those schools. I don't think anyone could argue, as much as they may be a homer for whatever national team that they root for. I don't think that anyone would leave Ohio State out of the top 5.
Are you talking about like teams to beat, to put eyeballs on your team that year?
The top 5 teams that would be, quote unquote, the teams every single year out. I don't see Ohio State on anybody's board going below 5.
No, I mean, if you're talking about that's a perennial playoff team.
Yeah.
Like every year, things have to happen for them not to make it, right? Because if they just win, they're in.
Do I like them? Am I championing for that? No. I do not. I think that especially one year out of 12 games, they had 9 home games, and you know what I mean? It's the deck is stacked in their favor. So I am not championing for them. I'm just saying that perception is reality. And if you knock off an Ohio State, a Clemson now versus beating them in 99 is totally different. Georgia, we played them very well in 2003, I think it was. And it's just totally different now.
Right.
Bama now versus back then is different. So it's just different. Beating them in 2024 would be one of those that you cannot buy that press that you would get.
Right. Well, let's look at it even in a smaller scale. We're going to have an opportunity to take on a really good NC State team this year. And I'm not trying to diminish that. If you go down to Raleigh and you win that game, that's going to raise some eyebrows, but that's not the same as going to Columbus and beating the Buckeyes. But Still very impressive wins, right?
Mhm.
Not trying to take anything away from NC State. I think they're going to be really good this year. It's just two different categories of eliteness, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Ohio State is in one of the top 4, 5, 6 teams. I mean, we're not going to go to USC and play, right?
Right.
We're not going to go to Oklahoma, I don't think, and play, or Texas really and play. So these East Coast based teams, we have 4 of them that are kind of on the cream of the crop type deal. That's one of them. So you have to be ready for that, and being able to pull off a victory in Columbus. It's just, as much as we celebrate Notre Dame, they would celebrate this Ohio State victory harder, I think.
And let's take it a step further. It's 2.5 hours from most of the people that live here in the tri-state to get up there to that stadium. A lot of people might not even have to get a hotel room. There are a lot of people that are fans that live much closer, that are in that region up there of Ohio, or coming over from Cincinnati or Northern Kentucky or wherever it is. It's not that far of a drive. We have a lot of fans that live right in Columbus. So it's going to be an easy trip. And I think that is by far the closest power that we can ever play, unless the landscape just drastically changes again. Ohio State is going to be that closest big time team that we can play.
Yeah, and it's going to be a really hard ticket to get. We know that the allotment is going to be extremely small for a stadium that seats over 100,000 people, or will cram in over 100,000 people. So we by no means will have a huge contingency of fans in the grand scheme of overall attendance there. But I guarantee you that every ticket that we have will go to a Herd fan. We were told that, right? We were told that during an interview, and I believe that. So it's going to be tough to get your hands on those, but it's going to make for an unbelievably awesome environment. Hell, I think people will just go to Columbus just to be in the city on game day, whether you have a ticket or not.
Well, I was there both years that we played, in 04 and then in 2010. And where I sat in 04 was much better than where I sat in 2010. But there was an unbelievable a contingent of Herd fans in both. And you were loud, but you're drowned out by the 90-some% Ohio State fans that are there. But we are definitely going to go up. We're going to make noise, and it's going to be a fun time. And it's going to help recruiting, right?
Sure.
We're going to have a lot of people in that area that are going to get exposed to Marshall and or reacquainted with them.
Yeah, reacquainted is a good word.
And I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
Number 4, today is the 2-year. You'll be watching this on Tuesday, so it's the 2-year anniversary of the men's soccer national championship game, where we won. And the schedules are out now, coinciding with that date, for men and women's team. You can find that on Herd Zone. I don't know if you have it in front of you and you want to talk about any of the things, but we can do that. Also coinciding, that means that season tickets are on sale for both. We encourage everyone to go all in the same way that it did with football. You can go all in with men's soccer and get tickets for women's soccer. And then also coinciding is we're auctioning off the game-worn jersey from Jamil Roberts, who scored that epic goal to give us the national championship.
Yeah, first of all, we are not doing that.
We, Marshall, are doing that.
The Big Green is doing that, actually, and there's a link to that. I've tweeted it out a couple of times. It's floating around there. It's probably been in your inbox if you're a Big Green member. But starting bid on that thing is $5,017, and I think folks are like, "What?" But I mean, it's kind of a purposeful thing. May 17th, $5,017, the date we won the title. So that's kind of the reason that it's starting so high. Yeah. But you have to look. Let's go with that and work our way backwards, right? Let's go with that jersey. To me, that's going to be one of those holy grail type pieces of Herd memorabilia, right? There are probably a short list, and everybody has some things that they would put on that. But in a grand scheme, that's got to be one of those pieces, because Jamil Roberts had an unbelievable College Cup, 3 straight game-winning goals, and then the one, of course, to win the national championship. So I wondered what happened to that jersey. I wondered if they gave it to him or the team got him or whatever. But it's resurfaced now, and it's framed. I went to the link page, or the page to the link today, and saw the auction landing site, and it's framed, and it's already done up really nice. But that's got to be one of those that shoots right to the top, man. I mean, right to the top. We'll have other opportunities to, I guess, create Holy Grail pieces, but that's a national championship winning jersey by the guy who kicked the winning goal. So,
well, and he kicked it. So what happened to the left cleat? That's
a good point. That's a good point.
Maybe that's going to be the 5 or 10 year, or maybe that cleat is gone forever. We don't know, but
maybe he just rolled out of the building with them and just really didn't, it's like, well, these are my cleats. I'm just leaving. And, maybe after the fact, you're like, wait a minute, these are kind of a poignant piece of history here for the Herd fandom. But anyway, you can get in on that if you feel like taking your shot at a major piece of Herd memorabilia. Yes, and season tickets are out, renewals are out, and first time season ticket deposits are out. I went ahead and renewed ours, right? And we went all in.
We're going all in. Every chance that we can go all in, we're doing so.
So what does that mean for fans? Well, it means that we're going to be giving away 2 tickets to every single men's and women's home soccer match this season yet again. And we are in section 102, row 3, right on the aisle. So you're going to have a great seat right down low. And if you need to stretch out just a little bit, you can stretch your leg out into the aisle. That's kind of how I like to roll, give you a little extra room. So I recommend, I've thoroughly, highly, whatever adjective you want to put in there, encourage you to renew those season tickets early.
Yeah.
Because they're also asking if you want to make a seat change. So get your renewals in, re-up your season tickets, put your deposits down. We've got a great slate. So now let's talk about that. First off, out of the gate, you have several opportunities to make a weekend out of Herd soccer and Herd football. So let's go through that. Weekend opportunities will be Xavier at home, and that coincides with the home opener for football against Albany. Then later in the season, you'll have an opportunity against UCF at home at the Vet, and that coincides with the Virginia Tech home football game. That's 2 great weekends right there that you can really ensconce yourself in Herd sports.
UCF was a top 25 team last year. Don't know if that'll translate into the same this year, but it should be a good matchup.
Yep. And then one more opportunity that kind of gives you the chance to make a long weekend out of it, if you want to look at it that way. The midweek football game against James Madison gets paired up with that home soccer match against the University of Kentucky. That's going to be a hot ticket to get against UK. So that is a unbelievable opportunity there to make a long weekend out of a midweek football game and a marquee home soccer match. And, of course, the last one you got to talk about is the Mountain State Derby. Will be taking place in Morgantown this year on October 18th. So there are a lot. And that's just a handful of games, right? There's still some other interesting SBC matchups that we'll have to play. That's just opportunities to pair a couple of games with a couple of sports together. So
we also got September 5th at Pitt, and that will be not only has that traditionally been a good game back and forth, and they have traditionally been a good program, but João Souza is now up at Pitt. So that's another little interesting matchup that we're going to have.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about women's soccer schedule real quick, they've got 17 games on the slate. 10 of those are at the Vet, including a 5-game homestand between August 31st and September 17th. So you have basically a 2.5-week period to where you can get your butt to the Vet and catch a game at least once. Not to mention, we'll be giving away tickets to all those. So we're going to be making it really easy for you to get over there to do that. Included in the home slate is reigning Sun Belt Conference champion Old Dominion, which is going to be on October 5th. So there's some other good games in there. Several of the tournament teams are coming to the Vet this year, including, I think, a rematch. Who was it that eliminated us last year? I can't remember if it was like Georgia State or something. I don't remember who it was. I'd have to go back and look at it, but I think it may have been Georgia State. And we have Georgia State at home. We go to Georgia Southern. But at home, you're going to get High Point, Ohio University, Gardner-Webb, Little Miami, Liberty, ULM, South Alabama, defending champ, Old Dominion, Georgia State, and Coastal Carolina all coming to the Vet this year. That's a pretty good slate for the women. And since we've gone all in, tickets are going to be available. I am already ready to give away a bunch of tickets this year because that was a lot of fun last year.
It was. And we hope to continue to do that for as long as we can, not just our first year and not just now this year, but we hope to always be able to add a little bit of something to our fans and hopefully make some new fans because they get a ticket for free. Maybe they take their kids, creates new fans, and they say, hey, let's get tickets of our own next year.
Yep. This was worth it. I'm going to do it again.
All right, so number 5, Stephen Gilmore signed with the Detroit Lions. We saw that well earlier in the week, but we haven't recorded in a while. So we definitely want to talk about that a little bit. You had mentioned several different times how qualified this guy was to make an NFL roster. He's got the pedigree. He's got the intangibles. He makes the big plays, and we were wondering, hey, why hasn't anybody got him? Well, they have now.
Yeah, heads up to Detroit. And that fell kind of under the radar. I saw that from a tweet of somebody that was like with Steven. It wasn't a tweet of Steven's.
Right.
And I thought, wow, well, good for him. And then, several days later, the Detroit Lions Twitter account posted like some recent signings and Gilmore was on there. So that's kind of confirmed. It's not just rumor that did happen. It actually happened. My only thought is, why in the hell are all the NFC North teams signing these guys from Marshall that I may have to face as a Packers fan? You got Beauplan going to Minnesota, and now you got Gilmore in Detroit. And not that this really relates Marshall-wise, but the Bears drafted Darnell Wright, the Huntington kid. So, damn it, I'm like surrounded by all this local talent, and Green Bay didn't do anything for me. Nothing. They didn't give me one guy to root for from a Herd roster or locally.
At least you will get to watch those players twice playing your team every year at a minimum. So
if they make the 53-man roster, I mean, Wright will, but if Beauplan and Gilmore make the 53-man, you're right, I will. I'm hoping, selfishly, I don't mean anything against you guys, right? Nothing against you, Abe, nothing against you, Steven. I hope you don't get signed by those two, but put enough on film to where somebody else signs you so that I don't have to see you terrorize my team twice a year. Maybe you can go somewhere you can have a more impactful career. I'd love to see you stick somewhere, just not playing against my team.
Number 6, we're going to talk about some commitments here, but we're going to leave out football because that's going to be our feature.
Yeah.
So Marshall picks up commitments from Malachi Goebel in track, Tamia Lawhorn in women's basketball, and Elias Amash in men's soccer.
I saw these, of course. Malachi Goebel, track, local kid. Gotta love that. Tamia Lawhorn is just the next in the string of Kim Stevens signings. This roster transformation is really underway. What is that, like 3 or 4 players now?
I think 4.
I mean, we're in the midst of what seems to be, I don't want to call it a roster overhaul, but I think we know that there are large changes afoot. I mean, what do you have on a roster? 12? That's already a third of the roster?
I think it's 13.
Okay.
So you get, but still right at a third.
Yeah, you're flirting with a third, and I'm sure she's not finished yet. So we could be honestly looking at half of the roster being turned around when it's all said and done. Of course, we don't know that. We're just speculating. If you've got 4 this early, you'd like to think there's probably a few more coming down the line. And then Iomash, is he the younger brother? Okay, because I saw somebody tweet that. I tried to do some research, and all I kept getting, same name, was a professional player in Spain.
So if you actually go to his brother's profile on Herd Zone,
which I did,
it lists that he has 4 siblings, and this is the youngest of them.
Yes, but when I searched just that name, I kept getting a pro player from Spain, and I was like, well, that's obviously not who it is. But there was really nothing else. I couldn't find anything else. But so we're all, we're hitting it on all fronts. Everybody's out recruiting. And they ain't the only ones. There's some seasons just ended, and recruiting has opened up, and the portal window just opened for softball as well. So we'll see if there's some stuff going on there. But baseball is going to be ramping up. I mean, there should be a lot of recruiting news that's coming in because we're getting into that off-season, summer season, camp season type thing, to where this news just starts floating around there more often and more often. But I love it, man. I love seeing track and field signings. I love seeing these sports that historically we haven't followed recruiting with. I like seeing the trajectories of those programs. I remember we got really invested in the tennis class. So that's kind of what turned it on for me last year, was the tennis class. And now I just enjoy seeing what we're doing, who we're going after, like where are we going geographically to find these athletes for our other sports. And it's just interesting to me. Recruiting is just an interesting science to me as it is. So I'm glad I get to expand that to enjoyment of other sports for the Herd.
Now, as we move on for the rest of our things for this week, it's important to note that the last week's episode loaded right after news broke of who were and were not the players of the year in the Sun Belt Conference for softball. So let's talk about one award that we won, and then we can branch off from that for a little discussion if you'd like to. Number 7 thing this week is Sydney Bickle was named SBC Newcomer of the Year.
Yeah, deserved. Yep. Very, very deserved. We talked many, many times over the course of the season at her presence at shortstop defensively, what it did to transform that Herd defense. This was just a very, very deserved award, and I'm going to say the only deserved award of the ones that were, of the 4 major ones that were handed out.
Yeah. And what she brought to the number 2 spot of the lineup as well, the speed that she had up there. She led, I think, tied for the lead in the NCAA with 9 triples. Just helping set the table with all the batting average and on base percentage, crazy stats from our top 4 in the lineup. That just is a recipe for a lot of runs. We had that high powered offense and she was a part of it, but slick fielding around short. It's worth noting for anybody out there that has never been followers of fielding percentage errors, that sort of thing, for baseball and softball. By far, your most are usually at the shortstop. So the fact that she had so many errors sprinkled in, there's a lot more chances. It's a longer throw most of the time. It's things up the middle. She made so many plays this year that robbed hits or prevented additional bases, helped snag outs to get out of jams. And we had that from all over the infield. We had a very good defensive infield. We had a great outfield defensively as well, and Autumn behind the plate. So it was defense top to bottom, but she seemed to be that defensive captain, in my opinion, of her style at short.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, right, from the left, up the middle to the left, all 4 of those players were first team All Sun Belt Conference, right? Autumn, Sid Nestor, Bick, and Grace, all 4 of them first team all conference. So if you're strong up the middle, then you're going to be a strong defensive team. And Marshall was definitely strong up the middle. I can't be happier for her, because the triple thing is just one of those wild stats, right? Because triples are hard to get, and
they are,
and to notch 9 is a big deal. But there's other things for me that fall, maybe they won't fall on the stat sheet, but it's like the ability to get the ball out of your glove quickly so that you can turn 2. Whereas if you can't do it as quickly, you might just get the lead runner, right? It's little things like that really contributed to, like you said, getting out of jams at times. So there's just these little skills that are far more polished than what the average fan may pay attention to. And it's stuff like that I can really appreciate about her.
And even getting to balls that other people wouldn't get to. So it might not be an error for that person, but their range is not going to be as good to even make a play on it. She robbed a lot of hits on line drives, of catching the ball over her shoulder, or, jumping to catch what could have been a gapper for 2 bases, could have been runs. it's just one of those things on defense. They come out with whatever, and I'm talking about baseball, softball, any diamond sport. They come out with all these different ways to try to quantify it. But for me, an eye test does just about as good as anything that you can ever come up with. And it's just hard because you would have to watch every inning, every play of every game across every league to do that. And that's why they try to come up with some kind of stat to compare. But the eye test, when you watch her, she's slick. She has the footwork down. She's got a great arm. So it was a tremendous addition to this club.
Sure was. It was a well-deserved award. She was the newcomer of the year. Yeah. She just was.
All right. So those others, before we move on, let's talk about those.
Let's do that.
Who did not win. Let's start with Triple Crown pitching winner, Sid Nestor, who did not get pitcher of the year and did not get a single pitcher of the week all year long.
But when she goes head to head with the winner of the Sun Belt Conference pitcher of the year, comes out on top in that matchup with a better pitched game. So
go figure.
What do you know about that? I think one of the things we learned this season, hopefully it doesn't continue, but the Sun Belt Conference really had a unfair bias against their current teams for this year. It's like almost like they were like, listen, it doesn't matter how good you knew 3 or 4 teams are. And this was across a lot of all sports, not just softball. It's like, no matter how good you guys are, we're not going to give you the proper credit, right? We're just going to downplay everything. And we saw that in awards voting this year. But it is what it is, right? We can't gripe about that. I mean, we can gripe about it, but it ain't going to change anything. But you win the Triple Crown and you're not the pitcher of the year. What the hell are you doing? What they say, well, the coaches voted on it. Well, so, I mean, I don't understand that.
Here's my take. So it was the coaches, and I think that the bias was actually toward the Western Division. And I think that the top teams on average are probably better in the West than they are in the East. So I think that Marshall's schedule, we didn't play many people on the West, so they didn't get to see us. So those coaches, I've heard fans say that. I've heard coaches say that as well. We didn't really get to watch their games, So they're looking at stats, and I feel like they said, and I feel like they're wrong. I'm not agreeing with them, but I feel like they said, oh, they had the 260th strength of schedule. Oh, they obviously padded their stats. No, every game you could pencil in pretty much a complete game, workhorse from Sydney Nestor. And if she gave up 2 runs, that was atypical. Her, what was it, 1.08 was it?
Yeah, and I think that actually fell a little bit, maybe to around 1.04 or 1.03. So just a tick over 1.
Yeah. So it's one of those things of, if you can pitch, you can pitch.
Yep.
It's not like that she was pitching against only the teams that we should have beat up on. Every team that we played, look what she did against Alabama. Through 5 innings, they had gotten 1 hit and did not sniff a run. Look at Virginia Tech, who was ranked at the time, shut them down, gave them 1 run. She pitched well against everybody, and it was maybe 3 games out of the year that you just said, well, that was just an atypical performance for her. She gave up 3 runs or 4 runs or whatever, which are going to happen when you pitch 30 times plus, right? So I don't see any way, and I know that it's by the coaches, but I don't see any way now that they can say, well, that program, I'm going to treat them the same way next year. And when it comes to voting, I'm going to dismiss them. I don't think that we'll get dismissed now. Now, will some fans do that? Yeah, because I still see them on Twitter saying that, but I don't care what any fan says.
Yeah, that's fans. I mean, fans are going to do that. People are going to say that about us. Well, you're just homers for Marshall. And while we are, you just can't deny statistically what you're seeing. You can't do it. Sid goes toe-to-toe with everybody's Friday starter. That's their number one pitcher. So she's facing everybody's number one. Also, it's not like you're in these slugouts where you're winning 10-9 every game.
Right.
It's not that. It's like they're lucky to get a run. So it's not like she's getting battered every game in and game out, and we just have to outscore people. That's not what we were seeing. We were outscoring the hell out of people a vast percentage of the season, and she was just shutting them down anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, if you lead in strikeouts and you're way up there in innings pitched and you let in wins, I mean, what more do you want? And you go against the Sun Belt Conference Pitcher of the Year in the tournament. Both girls had pitched complete games the day before. One exited early, one did not. And the other one, or not the other one, but the one that stayed in the game and pitched a complete game notched the victory. And if not for one home run hit in the title game, who knows how that one goes?
Right.
You know, that was a pitcher's duel, and that was Sid's third straight start after 2 straight complete games. Yeah. What more do you want? What more? There's obviously at this point, there's nothing she can do to prove that she was the best pitcher in the league. There's nothing you can prove. You just don't want to hear it. You don't want to see it. So I feel bad for her because she's an all-timer, and I know she's not going to tell us, well, you know, it's about awards. It's always been it's not about that for her, but still being recognized for what you accomplished on some level is important. And we can't just be the only ones and the only fan base that appreciates what she did. There had to be other teams that faced her that went, Jiminy Christmas, she's at times unhittable, right? Yeah. So it's just unfair that this whole scenario went down from a pitching standpoint, and equally as unfair how Player of the Year went.
Yeah, so let's transition into that. Triple Crown Award winner Autumn Owen. Again, not just compiling these stats against weak opponents. She was very consistent all year round, with no matter if it was in league play, if it was against Alabama, if it was against Virginia Tech, she produced all year round. One thing that you mentioned on Twitter, and we've talked about on the show, she caught every inning after the second week of the season. Like just a handful of games in, she started catching every single inning of every single game. She is the one that we talked about that runs from the dugout to get behind the plate. She runs out every walk. She's a hustler. She had the stats, she had the makeup, and I'm sorry what they said about their justifications for Carly Heath. That just doesn't play for me. I feel like, again, it was Western Division bias because those coaches all got to see her play and did not get only 1, 2, possibly, ULM and
Texas
State got to see Autumn play.
So let me dissect that, right? Let me kill that argument real quick. First of all, right out of the gate, what did Autumn do this year? She led the Sun Belt Conference. Number 1 in the Sun Belt Conference in, let's rip these off, batting average, OPS, home runs, RBIs, total bases, slugging, walks, and on-base percentage. She was number 3 in the conference in hits, all while ranking just 33rd in the conference in at-bats. So she did the most damage with 32 players having more at-bats, official at-bats, than she did. Now, yes.
And that's mainly because of the walks that she had.
Right, she let in walks, but still. And tied for 4th in defensive fielding percentage. So it's not just an offensive outpouring. It was a defensive prowess as well. Sets the all-time record in RBIs with, what did I say? It was 70. I don't know what it ended up at, 72, maybe 71. And Player of the Year gets 43 to lead her team. Okay, so here's the Sun Belt tweet that justifies it. It says, Carly Heath of Raging Cajun Softball is the Sun Belt Player of the Year after leading the team in runs, 49, RBI 43, and total bases 107. And here's where you kill it. All coming against the number 4 rated strength of schedule in the nation. I had repeatedly had fans telling me, well, this only counts Sun Belt Conference stats. This is all this is Sun Belt Conference stats, to which I said, so you're telling me the best team in the conference, which Louisiana is and was, they are, you're telling me that the best team in the conference has a number 4 rated strength of schedule against the rest of the conference when everybody they play would lower their strength of schedule, right? Because they're the best. So only people that play Louisiana can have their strength of schedule raised.
Yeah,
It's all bunk, man.
Some of them argued against themselves and didn't realize it by saying this only counts conference stuff. Plus, she played against the number 4 strength of schedule in the same tweet to you. I did not get into any disagreements on there. You know, as most people know, 99% of the time you're the guy on the handle, you know, and I did not jump in on any of them or whatever. It wasn't worth it to me. You know, earlier in the day, I had just come from just a cracking time of shooting some fish in a barrel. So I didn't really want to hop in and do it again, you know? So, you cannot argue both. And when we are talking so well about Autumn Owen, because we saw her, these same fans have said, well, I didn't see Marshall play a single inning.
Right.
I didn't see Carly Heath play.
Me neither.
And that's what we're talking about, is you just have to go by the stats when you're talking about that. They said that, well, she pitched too. She did. She pitched 36 innings. Okay. Right. That doesn't really mean anything to me, especially since that wasn't even brought up in the award tweet
at all.
You know, at all. So, you know, I just feel like if you're going to equalize, you equalize. Stats are the big equalizer.
Yeah.
And I didn't see anybody saying, well, hey, I've done all the homework on Carly Heath, what she has batted in the conference, because they did bring up what she did conference only, but nobody compared it to what Autumn did conference only. Wonder why? Because it still would have fallen down below what she did.
Yeah. And I have faith in saying that a lot of what Autumn put up, I haven't looked at these stats. I'm just speculating based on her overall numbers. I would tend to think that her conference only numbers would outpace the season numbers for in hits and RBIs and things like that. I don't know, but it would either be close or outpace, I would think, because the separation between 49 and 72 or 73, that's a lot, man. That's a big difference. So I'm not trying to take anything away from Carly Heath. I'm not trying to talk down about her. I think she's a fine player.
That's what they were doing. They were taking that to heart, that we were saying Carly Heath is bad. We're not.
It's that's a different statement, right?
Yeah.
And
it's the same as when we were talking about Tavion Kinsey going up against Brown from Louisiana. Tavion's numbers were just that much better than Brown's. Tavion's were better than everybody. And we talked about that with Dave Schultz on his podcast too, when he asked us about it. So, yeah, we know that our players were deserving. Our fans know that our players were deserving. And, hey, this is something that happens in any award that's given out. Not only do the fans of the team, of the winner or the person that should win or whatever, it's a tale as old as time, man. I still get caught up in how many MVPs Ted Williams got robbed of, where he came in second. You can make the same case for Mike Trout. It's just one of those things, and it's never going to be changed. I didn't get involved in any of the arguing over it because I felt like it was pointless. We could have pointed out anything in the world, and some of those fans, anonymous Twitter users, are just not going to say anything of, hey, you make a good point. So,
well, you get to the point to where it's obvious that they're just trying to poke you. They just want to make you have a response, and you're like, all right, I'm bowing out of this now. I made my case. I don't have to keep going. I made my case, and my case is solid and sound, based in fact and statistics, and yours is based in, well, I don't like your team, so I'm going to call you names. I'm like, all right, well, we're done here, right?
Yeah.
So there was one more award, right? Coach of the Year.
Coach of the Year.
And I feel like that of all the ones that we've talked about, I felt like Megan should have been Coach of the Year. We set a program record for wins, saved the strength of schedule bullshit. You have a really great conference season, right? Mm-hmm. A really great conference season.
Yeah.
And you lose to South Alabama head coach. It's not a indictment of the type of coach she is or whether I like or don't like her, right? It's not about that. But we had a historic season, and we broke tons of records and it had so many high performing individuals. It was best that it was really noticeable that the quality of the team that we put on the field, while we didn't know what it was going to look like, she didn't even know what it was going to look like. If you remember,
that's right.
What it ultimately ended up doing is just a testament to the job that she, Corey, Maddie, Allie, and the whole staff did there to get the absolute most out of this team for an entire marathon of a season, and to put up a win total 45-10 or 45-11, whatever it was, and then just to not be recognized. They were just like, well, sorry, sorry, good job, but we're gonna, they deserve it, and we eliminate. These awards came out before the tournament. I get it. We eliminated them. So you go head to head, and our side comes out victorious. So, the only crack that we got at them, we beat them, right? So they were awarded 2 of the 4 awards, and we went 1-0 against them in the SBC tournament. So that's really the only thing. Megan's another one that's going to say, no, she's not going to say, well, I deserve that award. She'd rather have the scoreboard do the talking, and it did. So that's where I hang my hat on that one.
Well, let's look at what we lost from the 22 team. Maya Stevenson, Sage Pye, Allie Harrell, 3 that are going to be listed as all-time great softball. We lost more than that as well, but it was a total overhaul on this team defensively. Grace and Autumn were kind of the only 2, I think, that came back that were in their positions from last year, I think, but not counting on the in the circle with Sid. But you added a shortstop. You got a maybe Riley Lucas was at first a lot last year as well. But anyway, there's a big overhaul defensively. Lineup looks a lot different. Remember, you asked her, is this a good different? And she said, we'll have to see. Ask me in a couple of months. Yeah. And so what you do with an entirely new lineup, new players and everything, and you go out and set all these records, and I don't think anybody that has any kind of sense is going to look at what we did in the tournament and say, nah, they just got by on a low strength of schedule.
Right.
They could have said that going in. Afterwards, when you beat South Alabama and you barely lose to Louisiana, I've heard only a couple of people that I don't respect their opinion. People that I do respect their opinion said, hey, they were impressive. I'm a believer.
They're legit now.
Yeah.
And that takes that. Sometimes they just need to play the game. They need to see it live and go, shit, we were wrong about them. They are good. And
so
that's cool.
Here's the deal too, and this is slightly more on the team and not on the coach and everything. But when you're a fan and your team beats either a rival or someone else in an important game or something like that, and you diminish the team that you played. So you talk nothing but trash after the game, not before the game, about how bad that opponent was and it was all a sham and everything. And you barely beat them. What does that say what you're saying about your team, when I would be saying we were lucky to get out of there? That team's legit. Only because our team is so strong were we able to get out of there. Yeah. That's not what I heard from a lot of people that, again, I don't respect their opinion. But when I see, oh man, we hit a solo home run to beat them 1-0 and they were trash. What's that say, man?
Yeah. It says that strength of schedule you want to hang your hat on isn't that damn important, right?
Yeah.
It's not a good indicator of talent.
When you say that, we hit a solo home run to beat a trash team, that doesn't sound very good.
It doesn't, doesn't play, man. It doesn't track at all. But anyway, let's get off of the this is now almost a week old. So it's nice to have one last therapy session to get all that out.
We do have 2 more things for softball that we can talk about. And this is 5 softball players made the SBC all-conference first team. You mentioned 4 of them, but here they are again. Alex Coleman also made first team. You mentioned up the middle, Grace Chelman, Sydney Bickle, Autumn Owen, and Sydney Nestor.
Yeah, a credible accomplishment. If that doesn't tell you that Marshall's team was legitimate, then I don't know what else will. You're just choosing not to believe it. So that's
Right.
okay, but congratulations to those gals. I mean, 2 of those 5 are exhausting eligibility. The other 3, as far as we know, are returning. So you've got to think that Autumn and Bick and Alex are going to be massive cogs in the Herd softball machine next year. But what a career for Sydney Nestor in the circle. What a curtain call season for Grace Chelleman as a outgoing senior. I mean, she was what I would consider a contributor last year. She didn't have a blowout season. The numbers didn't kill you. And remember, when we interviewed her and talked to her, I gave her stat line at that point in the season versus what she did the entirety of the year before. And the numbers far outpaced everything she did. And then she continued on to have a remainder of a great season. So she really had a hell of a curtain call season. I'm really happy for her, man. But, replacing Sid Nestor that's tough. I mean, that's a very daunting task.
Yeah.
And Marshall's going to have to find a way to do that. We mentioned that the portal season, or the portal, opened for softball just this week, and I don't know how long it runs. I'm assuming for a while, but we're probably going to have to find someone that's a polished pitcher. Sid came in with good numbers from NC State, and she just needed a change of venue and a breath of fresh air to really reignite that career of hers. And did it ever.
That's one more point of contention that I didn't bring up. Not just fans, but the announcers kept saying that this was her first year with Marshall, that she had just come from NC State. She was there all year last year and won Conference USA Newcomer and Pitcher of the Year.
Yeah.
So
let's do the last thing, and then I'll tell you the thing I want to say.
All right. So number 9 this is after the tournament finished up. We landed 3 on the Sun Belt Conference all-tournament team, and that is Sydney Nestor, Grace Chelleman, and who had a breakout performance, Bree Godfrey.
I started calling her breakout Bree Godfrey, man, because damn, that Sun Belt championship game was big for Bree. Was it? Wait a minute. Was it maybe it was South Alabama game?
South Alabama.
Yeah,
game.
South Alabama
3 for 3
was big for her, man. She broke out big time. Hustle plays, defensive plays. I mean, we had just talked about in the regular season finale, she notched her first couple of RBIs on the season. So that last 2 weeks of the season for Bree was big time, man. So,
and a true freshman that just turned 18.
Yeah, really, really happy for her to get recognized in a big way as part of the Sun Belt all-tournament team. And of course, Sydney Nestor proving that she's the pitcher of the year by making it. And Grace just gets one more feather in the cap to cap off a illustrious senior season for the Herd. There were a lot of good accolades to close it out. It's just the Herd got shafted on the major awards, which is, pretty terrible in my opinion. But hey, we're not going to bring that back up. One last thing I want to say about softball before we move into our feature story. They had a tremendous year, right? A tremendous year, and they need to be rewarded for that. And I personally, if I'm not asking you to do it, Russ, but if you want to do it, that's fine. If we also want to do it with the podcast, that's fine too. But I have decided that I'm going to donate $1 for every win that we notched this season. And I'm going to donate that to the Thunder Trust, and I'm going to earmark that. I'm going to tell them I want that earmarked for softball, because they deserve to have a little bit of a pot begin to be built so that they can use for whatever they need to use it for, right? And let's not forget, all the softball games are free. Like, they were free this year. So if you went to a game and they asked you to pay $1, you probably would have paid the $1. So let's just look at it as paying a season's worth of dollars right now in one lump sum. If you can give $10, give $10. If you can give 20, give 20. Please just give whatever. If you can give more, then give more. But we would really like to build a nest egg for Herd softball to use in the NIL space. And we've been told that if you make a donation and you write in the comments, or you let them know or whatever that you want this specifically earmarked for softball, that it will be treated as such. So I'm going to ask everybody that's able to do that to do that. If you want to match the $1 per win like I'm going to do, that would be great. But please in the comments somehow let them know that this is earmarked for softball, so we can ensure that it goes to Megan and Corey and that staff so that they can do some of the things maybe that they need to do or that they want to do. And I think that's merited, man, to be able to witness all that for free. It's not a huge ask. And I know, some folks will go, man, $45 that's a big chunk. I don't know if I can do that. That's fine, man. You can do something, and anything is better than nothing. You got to witness history for free, essentially. So let's turn a little bit of that history into some dollars and help out the softball program, because I'm thrilled to say I want to do this. I've gotten a lot of enjoyment, and I'm down here in Florida. I don't get to go to games all the time. I got to go to one game here in Leesburg, Florida at the beginning of the season in one of the tournaments. And then for spring game weekend, I caught a little bit of the first 2 games, and then we were there for the Sunday finale. And that was $45 worth of fun for me, without a doubt.
So if you don't want to try to go and do an online donation to the Thunder Trust, you can also just email them and tell them what you're wanting to do. And then they can tell you, hey, check to this, give it to here, this, drop it in the mail to this location, whatever. But yes, tell them that this is specifically for softball. And again, this would go to their NIL fund. This is different than the Diamond Club. Is it called?
The Diamond Club is more for like general operations of the program, things they might need. Just it's a little fund that they can draw from to buy things that they might need. But NIL is becoming important, right? We know that. We don't have to keep saying that every time that this topic comes up. But it hasn't really trickled into softball yet that I'm aware of, but it's gonna. It's gonna. And Marshall's fielding a really strong team. And it's not like we're saying, well, we need to promise, $1 million to somebody. Right. But if they can put together something that's just attractive where there is nothing in the space already, then that's a little bit of advantage. If you want to be at the front of the curve, this is the kind of stuff you have to do, just to have some type of a package that you can maybe offer someone. And if nobody else is offering anything and you're offering something, then that's going to be attractive. So I'm asking, right? I'm asking if you can do anything. If you're a fan of Herd Softball, I mean, let's if you're a business owner and you want to get involved in the NIL space and you also love Herd Softball, email us, thundercast.pod@gmail.com. We will see if we can get some idea. We want to talk to you. Let's put it that way. We want to talk to you. But for individual donors, let's do this, man. I got a little bit of money kicking around. I'll donate $1 a win. If you can donate a quarter a win, a dime a win, it doesn't matter. Something's better than nothing. But we said way back when we started this show, this program has an opportunity to be a cornerstone program for the Herd in the Sun Belt Conference. And they absolutely do. They were a few hits here and there from hoisting a Sun Belt Conference championship in year 1. So we have the nucleus of players that's right there. We have to identify whatever it is that's going to push us over the hump and get over the hump. And NIL might be the way we do that. So if you want to help out, I encourage you to help out in some way. But let's get this coaching staff some more weapons in their arsenal to help us win.
Well, we did it again. We reached near an hour on going into our things, and that's just because we've got a lot to talk about. But
I mean, hey, whatever.
That does bring an end to our 9 things this week every Herd fan needs to know. And as always, brought to you by Ignite Link. Now let's talk feature. Let's talk Herd in the portal.
Let's talk more about how the Herd freaking dominated the portal after summer school started, which let's start there. We told you guys, pump the brakes. You want to know the news immediately. It just wasn't out there. It's not like we knew it and we're sitting on it. This is a strategic approach by our coaching staff to ensure that the guys that we're after, we get to retain by not announcing them until they're enrolled after summer classes. So now that you see some of the names coming across the timeline all week long. Now you start to understand why that's so important, because as excited as you are about these guys coming to play for Herd football, just imagine how unexcited you would be if you see that announcement tweet and then 2 days later it's flipped to school X because they're not enrolled yet. So We know there was a lot of guys that went out. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. So I've got a full portal rundown post-National Signing Day. Okay, let's put it that way. So it's actually, let's just do recruiting. There's a couple of high school guys that have committed for the 2023 late 2023, and then the first one for 2024 back in February 4th. I know that was right before, I think, National Signing Day. But we got a commitment from a kicker punter, Marco Peary from Norfolk, Virginia, 5'9", 175, rated the number 5 kicker in the 2023 class by National Kicking Rankings and the number 7 punter. So there have been several kickers and punters that have come in or will be coming in to compete. This is going to be a highly contested job, it feels like, or 2 positions that throughout the summer, it feels like. And then the Herd received their first commitment of the 2024 class from a high school prospect back on April 16th. Cam Kennard from Hueytown, Alabama. He's a defensive back, 6'2", 180. So there's not a lot out there on him yet because he's a junior. You know, he's going to be entering his senior season of football, and that's usually when you see a lot of the star rankings and things like that happening. But there are, let me get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 guys, Russ, 12 guys total that I could find. So this is as best that I could find. Also slightly before, no, this isn't before National Signing Day. Never mind. I got them in chronological order, right? Starting on April 23rd, when we've mentioned him on the show before as a running back, Antoine Roberts, 6'2", 200 from Hendersonville. He was a 2021 Wisconsin signee, went the JUCO route, and then signed with the Herd from Independence Community College. Then a couple of days later, on the 25th of April, we got another kicker / punter. That was Cameron Lake. We talked about him from, I think it was D2 Washburn University, 6'2", 175, went 8 of 12 on field goals with a 47-yard long and 42 out of 46 on extra points. I'm breezing through the guys we've mentioned a little bit. And then on the 1st of May was tight end Chris Matillo, the 6'6", 258-pounder from Erie, Pennsylvania, from Penn, University of Pennsylvania, then USF, and now to the Herd. Just a day later, wide receiver Daryl Simmons, we've talked about, 6'2", 210 from Philly, started out with Virginia Tech, then went to Stephen F. Austin, 23 catches for 249 yards and a touchdown in 2022. Same day, the punter from Tennessee, Colby Morgan, 5'11", 200 from Oneida, Tennessee. And then 5 days later, we get the quarterback that we speculated may not happen, or at least I speculated may not happen. Quarterback TJ McMahon, 6', 195 from Rice. He's actually from Anaheim, California, comes over from Rice, where he passed for 2,100 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions in 2022. Let's stop right there and let's examine that. So you bring in a experienced quarterback to go toe-to-toe with Cam Fancher and whoever the, at the time, number 2 is. If you think it's Cole, it's Cole. If you think it's somebody else, it's somebody else. So we lose Cade Cunningham to the portal. We find that he signed with Memphis and Tim Cramsey. So good for Cade. Glad to see he found a decent home with coach he's familiar with. But you bring in TJ McMahon to go seemingly head-to-head with Cam Fancher in the summer. What is your reaction to that? Does this seem like it's I'm here to vie for the starting spot, or I'm here as a solid, experienced number 2 in case something happens? What's your gut reaction to that?
Gut reaction is he's here to push people on the field to be better, and that he probably is not going to be our number 1 or our number 2. Yeah, that's my gut.
Well, I feel like he's there to push Cam, right? To be better, nip at your heels type thing, to be a better number 1, solidify that number 1 spot. I feel like he's there maybe to be the number 2 if he performs well in summer session, because he's been in the fire, you know. Mm-hmm. But the stat line here, that 18 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, that feels very Grant Wells to me. And that's what people didn't like about Grant, is he threw touchdowns, but he threw a lot of interceptions too. So I can't say that I am very familiar with TJ McMahon's game. Same. I'm not. But just from a knee-jerk reaction, you know, you're an upperclassman, you've been there, you've played a lot of ball, you know the college speed of the game, and we've got Cam Fancher and a bunch of guys that haven't been in that fire Cole, you would like to think, would have the leg up because he was on the scout team last year and he was going
Mhm.
up against our defense last year. And that's a good fire to be in to help polish
Yeah.
your game for a season. But still, and you're probably right. He's there to push Harrison and Pennington and, the remaining quarterbacks on the roster to be better.
Mhm.
But it feels like early on, at least early on, couple of first 3-4 games, maybe, if something happens to Cam, he gets dinged up against Albany.
Mhm.
I think you don't risk putting him back in. You just put in McMahon, right? Because that's a game you're probably going to win. Why risk further injury to Fancher? And you've got a quarterback that can come in and run your offense and it's not going to get rattled in these, in these situations.
I will say that I truly believe, and I could never say this honestly about the previous coaching staff, but I truly believe Coach Huff will play the best player that he has the option of playing. And that goes for quarterback as well. So I feel like whoever comes out of there as the number one is going to be a clear number one.
Yeah, and I would say that too. When we talked about that last year, it came down so tight between Cam and Columbi that they ended up going with Columbi, and experience was the deciding factor, is because Henry had been in that fire. So in that capacity, skill set wise, they were so close. It was, you couldn't name a starter. And the determining factor was that, well, Henry'd seen a lot more than Cam had. So we feel better at this stage with him. And I think you're right. I think Huff will play the best 11 at any given time.
Yeah. So I'm looking at just going by stats, and this is what we said. If you don't watch, how could I have known that he was going to be here? So I couldn't have watched 4 years worth of development and the games and all that. But just looking at the stats, it seems like we're not talking about someone that was, throwing for 40 touchdowns a game.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. I just don't see what he brings stat wise to automatically say, man, that's a no brainer. He should be number one. So he's going to be coming in my opinion, behind not just the first two, but behind the first maybe even 3 or 4, because he's got to know our system. Got to learn all this stuff. He wasn't here for spring ball, that sort of thing. It just all points to he's going to be behind. And that's why I feel like he is there with experience. He is there with leadership. He has been in big crowds before, that sort of thing. But he's going to be behind and pushing these other guys that are going to be ahead of him. And if he does enough to pass them up, then you're going to have a very, very good, talented quarterback there to leapfrog that many people.
Yeah. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, right? But
No.
Like you said, we don't know anything about him.
He wasn't here for spring ball. These other guys were here last year.
Yeah.
It's just he's behind.
Yeah, he is behind, and that's fair to say. That's because he wasn't here, so obviously.
That's right.
But I haven't watched him play because we were so happy to not have to watch Conference USA football. Even if I had the opportunity to watch, I probably would not have. But anyway, that's a little joke, of course. We're really happy to have him here, of course, and if he can help the Herd win, that's what it's all about. And one thing that this kid may be like a legitimate, like, excellent teacher. So he could be like having another coach from a quarterback standpoint to work with these young guys. He just also has the capability and the ability to play. Yeah. So I don't know what else he brings that's not physical tools, right? He could be exactly what that quarterback room needs to notch it up. So either way you slice it, I'm happy to have him. And I'm intrigued by the quarterback room. A lot of people have said it just got interesting. Well, I mean, it got a storyline. Maybe I still think this is Cam Fancher's team. How do you come in and then just unless you blow it out of the water and Cam doesn't, then how do you set down a 6-win starter and bowl game winner? And I mean, I just don't think you can do that. So anyway. Moving on, we talked about Cade Conley also gave his commitment on May 8th, 6'4", 242-pound, another tight end from Central Michigan, from Williamston, Michigan, 11 catches for 168 yards in 10 games last year. But he was also academic All-MAC. So The tight end room just keeps getting crowded. We love that. I think that's one of the most interesting storylines of this offseason. I'm just so taken aback by that, really. And then comes the string, I guess, after the big visit weekend, right? Which was almost a week ago, how many days ago? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We got a slew of what could be mega impact players. And it started on May 11th with linebacker Steven Dix Jr., the 6'2", 236-pound linebacker from Orlando, Florida, went to Dr. Phillips High School. And I don't know if you guys know much about Florida high school football. Dr. Phillips High School is one of those kind of powerhouse Florida high schools that, is in that short conversation with places like St. Thomas Aquinas and, those types of places like that. Comes to us from Florida State. So the Florida State pipeline continues. Interesting career with the Noles, right? 9 games and 5 starts in 2020 as a freshman. He was third on the team in tackles with 45 tackles. He was a Rivals freshman All-American. And then in 2021, he played 12 games, only notched 14 tackles, and was a heavy special teams contributor. Then in 2022, he missed the entire season with injury. So it's one of those bounce back stories that we're hoping we saw, just like Kalen, right? Kalen was kind of under this same type deal storyline, injuries and adversity, and comes here, breath of fresh air, and bam, 1,500-yard season. Dix was a former 4-star recruit coming out of high school, the number 14 rated outside linebacker in the state of Florida. And he was number 240 in the 24/7 Sports top 247. So that's a pretty big deal. That's pretty impressive. This guy can play. And when you get to put him alongside guys like Eli Neal, it's the perfect type of accent to Eli. So these two guys, and, we're going to talk about another linebacker as well as, guys like Tom McBride that are also here, that we could have a very, very dangerous linebacking core. Just a day later, you get a commitment from defensive back Miles Bell, the 6', 187-pounder from Plantation, Florida, comes over from UConn, who, we played in the Myrtle Beach Bowl. So he got to see the Herd up close and personal. Just 4 games in 2022, 10 total tackles, an interception, and 3 pass breakups. Looks like a solid depth builder at the defensive back position. We've brought in some guys, and we expect some guys from last year's team to really notch up again. It's not going to be easy to replace Stephen Gilmore, but I think there are some guys on the roster that are going to make that secondary really, really good. Then a day after that, on May 13th, you get a commitment from another linebacker, Landon Watson, 6'3", 255 pounds from Round Rock, Texas, comes over from TCU, and not a place that I saw the Herd pulling from the portal, but we get not one but 2 guys. We'll talk about the second here in a second. 2 games in 2022, did not record a tackle. 2021 got 1 game, but that was his redshirt season. Also a former 4-star recruit, get this, was the number 5 weak side defensive end prospect in the state of Texas and the number 32 prospect in America. Now he plays linebacker. So an interesting hybrid type guy. We can see what he does for the Herd. Does he come down and put his hand in the ground, or does he play alongside, Eli and the rest of that linebacking core, or a little of both? Interesting prospect there. And you love the build, 6'3", 255. Holy moly. Same day, defensive end Jabari Ishmael, 6'5", 245 from Miami, Florida, from the U. Interesting bio here. Let me run this down for you. 2021 got 1 game. 2022 was a redshirt. Also a former 4-star athlete, number 197 overall in the ESPN top 300, 224 in the 27 Sports top 247. This is all positions, guys, nationwide. Rated the number 31 and number 32 player, respectively, in Florida by both of those recruiting agencies, ESPN and 24/7 Sports. Rated number 20 by ESPN, number 15 by 24/7 as a weak side defensive end, and the number 12 strong side defensive end by Rivals. I mean, you're ranking high at several positions and overall. This guy could be lightning in a bottle. To top it all off, he's the son of a strength and conditioning coach Victor Ishmael at the U. So, the kid knows how to work, right? The upside is tremendous here. And I mean, I bet they were happy to bring in a guy 6'5", 245, with that type of work ethic to cut him loose and be part of another violent and disruptive Herd defensive line. Could you imagine these guys lining up next to, Gibb and Tyquez and Porter and Austin? It's going to be pretty exciting. It's going to be pretty exciting. This Herd defense is going to be something. Last prospect we got on the week last week was another offensive lineman, which we've talked about many, many times. Again from TCU, Altrique Barlow from Virginia Beach, Virginia. I bet those 757 guys aren't liking that we were able to pull them to Huntington instead of landing at like Old Dominion or something like that. 2022 TCU roster lists him as a sophomore. He got 10 games, played 66 of his 67 snaps on special teams. 2021, 5 games. He was a 3-star prospect coming out of high school. ESPN rated him the number 28 offensive guard in America. 6'5", 360. What? That's the type of size you want to see opening up holes for Rasheen Ali, AJ Turner, and maybe even Cam Fancher. But that was the week in the portal. I mean, it's all defense, linebacker, D-back, linebacker, defensive end, and one offensive lineman. If you had the Herd taking 2 from TCU on your portal bingo card, congratulations, because that might be the most surprising thing to come out of the portal moves by the Herd this season. That's your portal wrap up now. Russ, give me some thoughts on this class so far. We don't know that they're done yet. There's still time to add.
Size on the line. That's what I'm looking at. Way back when at the start of this show in April of last year, we talked about Coach Huff. When he came here, he said we're looking for a certain size of our linebackers. We're looking for a certain size of our defensive backs, certain size of our defensive linemen. All of this is showing right here. I mean, we have brought in some huge offensive linemen, some huge defensive linemen, some big time linebackers. I don't care at this point. This sounds totally different than what I said about the QB on the stats don't show. I don't care what their stats were here, because we're talking about 2 separate things. A quarterback is totally different than how many touches a defensive back has. So I am just thrilled that we are bringing in depth. We are bringing in experience. We are bringing in, more than anything, size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you would like to think the competition just notched up big time on the offensive line and the defensive line. I mean, there's only so many snaps in a game.
That's right.
And if you've got a lot of top-tier talent that's all vying to be on that field, man, this is a good problem to have for the Herd. And as good as their defensive line was last year, they could be even more disruptive this year. I mean, they could. The linebackers could be more athletic. I mean, you think about losing a guy like Abe Beauplan, who was an unbelievably high performer across 2 conferences for the Herd for a number of years, and then you bring in guys that could potentially be just as impactful. I don't know how you aren't excited about that if you're a Herd football fan, right? We were worried, will they be able to sustain? And now I'm wondering, could they be even more do they have more team speed on the defensive side of the ball? Could they be even more violent? Could they be even more disruptive? I mean, this could be something that's, you think you don't get better, but you don't win games on ratings, right? Star ratings or star rate, it doesn't matter until you go toe to toe with the guy in front of you and you win those individual battles, right? We know that. We're not crowning the Herd right now, but I feel a lot better about what we look like going into the summer this week than I did 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right. So I think you're right, man. The size really gets you. 6'5", 360. Damn. I mean, damn.
I think it was 370, wasn't it?
I don't know. I wrote down 360. So if he's got another 10 pounds, okay, whatever. But
yeah, we'll get him that.
but the best part
I put on 10 pounds like nothing. I know that he can do it.
But the best part about this is one of those things. This is portal guys. So they've been in programs. They've been in weight rooms. Their bodies don't have to transform like we heard Huff talk about before, as an incoming freshman from high school. These bodies are transformed and they're ready for the speed of the game. They're ready for the rigors of the season and the off-season workouts and all of that. They're ready for that. So this is potential for instant impact, not just stud freshman instant impact. This is a totally different potential here. And having Rashina Ali back healthy, the continued trajectory of Cam Fancher, I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you I would still love to see, like a really big wideout get added, just somebody, a huge target, just a huge target. And we brought one in. I think we brought in a 6'4" guy or something like that. But, until I dissect the entire class as a whole and start to look at everything, I would like to have, another big weapon in the passing game come here.
Yeah. So we famously have brought in quite a few tight ends. We've talked about that. But I think out of all this, it seems like we have a wide receiver that needs to be brought in. Out of all this, I think defense has outpaced the offense a little bit as far as the depth that we've brought in. I'm not worried about the wide receiver room, but I'm with you. It almost feels like that's something that's lacking that would still be a target between now and the start of the season, that we bring in a wideout.
I mean, we've talked about it. It's not like the room is bare, right? There's a lot of talent there, but none of these guys currently on the roster that aren't 6'4" are just going to magically grow to 6'4". That's what I'm saying. There's just that extra safety valve of the throw it up and catch it guy, or the back corner end zone guy. That guy, a situational player maybe. But there's so many players in the portal. Hopefully if they're targeting one, they may not be targeting any more wide receivers. They may feel great about where we are. And I trust them, our coaching staff, far more than I could ever trust my own ability to recruit a roster, right? But the fan in me just gets excited about, these measurables and, to a certain degree, statistics. And if there's one out there, I would like to see us take a flyer on somebody and see if we can get just another weapon in here. But we know we're going to be a run-heavy team. We know we're going to be a great defense team, and that's where we're going to hang our hat on. That's what we hung our hat on last year, and it worked. It worked. So, you're a bad play here and there from being a 10-plus win ball team. You're a bad quarter away from playing in a Sun Belt title game. So, you were right there anyway. This is not a complete rebuild. This is just a reload in many instances. So I like what we're doing. I really am excited about this, all these defensive guys we brought in. And I'm excited to see the further development of this storyline as the summer goes along and we get into position group breakdowns. It's going to be a lot of fun to talk about this team.
So do you have anything else on this feature on the people that are brought in?
No, the only thing is I wish that I knew if we were at our scholarship limit or not, or if we still had some available, but I don't.
I don't know that either, but I do know that the number that departed was 19 and we have not brought in 19.
Yeah.
But I also don't know if someone's been awarded a scholarship that they were previously a preferred walk-on or things like that. So
that's what I mean. I don't know how they've divvied those things back up or reallocated them. So I can't say, oh, we've got 5 scholarships left, because I don't know that, but I wish I did. But anyway, we'll just continue to talk about these things whenever we see them float across. But no, I've got nothing else. If you've got nothing, let's take it around the herd.
Yeah. So we've talked about a lot of this, but let's talk about the track and field at the SBC championships. We brought home 2 golds. We had a lot of other placing and scoring and things. And I think we finished, was it 6th overall for the women?
I think the women finished 6th. Yeah. Men finished a little lower, maybe 10th.
Yeah. But first year that the men have had and haven't had a full year being here, but first year that they've been in the Sun Belt Conference, and first time they've been back and that started in January. So I think it was a good showing. I was really, I'm not going to say disappointed. I was just shocked that Brett Armbruster did not bring home the gold. I thought that was one of the things that you and I were both talking about and expecting, but we had a great showing across the board. I think a lot to build on for next year, and it's going to be fun to watch the girls and the guys.
Yeah, I think what I said was that the pole vault and Brett's race, what was it, 800?
The 800 meter.
The 800 were our two best opportunities to win an individual title. I felt like the pole vault was our best, and for the men's side, I thought Brett had the best opportunity to capture one, but it fell short. But that's okay. We still won 3. I did not see Mikah Alleyne winning, and that was a really great surprise. And then you add on a few bronzes there, and bam! All of a sudden, it's a pretty solid showing. I mean, pretty happy about that.
Some personal bests were set, and some school records were set. So it's a great time to do it.
Yeah.
You have some camp news here. So let's talk about these. What do you want to start with first?
Well, I just kind of wrote them down in no real order. I just kind of searched the Twitter account. But I'll start with baseball by happenstance. Baseball's camp, the youth camp, there's going to be 2 of them. There'll be June 26th through June 28th, and then another July 10th through July 12th. Both camps are going to be at the Ona Little League complex. It's $125 for each camp, and that covers, the entire weekend. Ages 9 through 12. I'm sorry. Time is 9 to 12, ages 7 to 12. 9 a.m. to noon, ages 7 to 12 years old. The prospect camp for the Herd baseball team. It's 2 one-day camps, August 19th, and then again on October 15th. Both of those will be at the Kennedy Center. There was a price range, so I don't know how this works out. It says $150 to $250. So I don't know if it's $150 for one. If you want to go to both, it's $250. I don't know that. It just said, 1 to $250. For ages 14 to 18, there was no contact info. I'm guessing you can get it all on Herd Zone or through the social media links, because there were links on the Herd Baseball Twitter account. Mm-hmm. Next is the volleyball setters and hitters camp. It's on July 14th at the CAM. I'm assuming it didn't say, but where else would it be? 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Cost is $100. It's an 8:30 a.m. check-in, and if you're going to take part, bring lunch. Lunch is not included in the cost of the camp. Men's basketball, it's got their team camps. Middle school team camp is on June 15th, and the high school camp is on June 16th or June 17th. It says, if you're interested in taking part in the men's basketball team camp, you can click the email address on the men's basketball Twitter account, but it is skags14@marshall.edu. There was no pricing info in the tweet. So if you want info, that's how you're going to have to get it. Next is the softball summer elite camp, session 1 and session 2. Session 1 is on June 12th. That's the hitting/gameplay camp, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Session 2 is the next day, June 13th. That's your defense/gameplay camp, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Individual sessions are $175, or you can get both sessions for $300. And if you do both sessions, you also get a free camp t-shirt. This camp is for rising 7th graders and up. I'm assuming it's at the Dot. It didn't say, but again, where in the hell else would it be? You can contact Corey Lyon at lionc@marshall.edu if you have direct questions about the camp. For registration, you can go to Herd Zone, and there is a link to register for the camps. Also available on Herd Softball social media links. They've tweeted about it, just as all of our teams have. So if you were interested in any of the camps that I just talked about, go to the social media pages and click or Herd Zone and click the links to get yourself registered. You got to imagine that these camps are going to fill up relatively quickly, all of them, because they're usually pretty big successes as it is.
That's right.
But in particular, I would think that the baseball prospect camp with the new stadium being built is going to be a hot one to be a part of. The softball camp, based on the season that they just had, is going to be a hot one to be a part of. And I wouldn't wait to get in on both of those. You've taken part, well, not you haven't, but you've done some volleyball camps. Caitlin has a couple of times, and those are always well attended. You talked about how big crowd was. So
it's huge, and it's such to see those kids. I mean, getting to interact with the players and everything, and hopefully both girls are going to go to the volleyball again this year. But yeah, I can't say enough about what taking a kid to this. It gives them instruction, it gives them something fun to do, and it makes them a Herd fan.
Yeah. Now, this volleyball camp in particular, it didn't give me an age group. It didn't say, right? So I don't know if this is a prospect camp or like just for,
Are you
kids.
Talking about the 1 day thing?
Yeah.
That you mentioned earlier? That's not the same as what, so it was a 5-day thing. So that is more for
like a prospect camp.
Yeah. So it's more for, that specific learning that thing, but the other is for more of youth, lower ages. And,
I mean, didn't they call that like the little herd camp or something like that? So it really indicated that it was for kids of all ages.
And they have that out. It's just not something that's been released here recently because I think we've already signed up, or maybe we haven't signed up for it. We've allocated that week. She'll be there. But.
Sure. I got you. So it's camp season. So if you're an athlete in the tri-state area or you're interested in getting seen by our herd coaches, you better take part in these camps because that's the best way to get their eyes on you and to get familiar with our facilities and what we do around here. Register for the camps now before the space fills up because they are going to go quick. Russ, do you have anything else? If you don't, I got one other thing if you want to talk about, but it can be like in my final words.
Yeah, so we need to talk about baseball.
Okay.
And baseball, they're on a losing streak right now, and we've talked about it. We hope that they come out of it, but they lost to Ohio 7-2, lost to Morehead State, and then 6-2. They got swept by Troy over the weekend, 7-6, 6-3, 4-2. Yesterday's game with Morehead State lost that, or they didn't get to play that game. It got lost due to rain. Horrible weather yesterday afternoon, and they are finishing up the season by heading to Coastal Carolina for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. That'll be the last 3 times. Anybody that's down in that Myrtle Beach, Conway area, hopefully you can go by and get a glimpse of the 22 herd.
Yeah,
or 23 herd.
It's been a struggle down the stretch for herd baseball. It's kind of disheartening. I hate it for those guys, especially the seniors that have dealt with so much over the past couple of years, and to have, to have the, final finger quotes, what we think will be the final game at the Kennedy Center just be canceled. It just seems like, well, that fits.
It's fitting,
So it's just a rough way to end the season for the guys. I truly feel bad for them because they work hard just like everybody else does. They're not seeing the results play out on the field.
Well,
and that's frustrating.
I'm a stats guy with the baseball, softball kind of sports. I am. We've talked about that for decades now, but I was going through the stats and a couple of things leapt out at me. Our top 3 starters who had the majority of the games started this year, they have a combined ERA of over 5.
Yeah.
And as a team, our ERA is like 6.28 or 6.29, something like that. We hit 91 batters in 50 games. 91. And our opponents, I think, hit us, maybe it was 34 times or something like that, but huge discrepancy. But we're hitting almost 2 batters a game. And pitching was one of those things where we were stronger last year in scoring runs and batting. Luke Edwards was off the charts last year with getting on base for, I can't remember how many games it was now.
It's like 60, right?
Yeah, spanned multiple seasons. But the pitching did not hold up this year. We had some great starts. If you remember when Patrick Copen was down at facing that Murderers Row lineup of Old Dominion.
Yeah.
And, so we've had, it seems like these great spots that they're hitting for multiple innings, a full game, whatever, and then just they hit a rough patch with it. So hopefully we can improve our pitching next year, and that will drastically improve what we have going on. But we had a lot of, and again, the season's not over, but we're down to the final 3 games. But we had a lot of even production from RBI standpoint spread out, but it's just not enough contributors when you're giving up 6.5 runs a game on average.
Yeah, it seemed like we would catch a lead early, and then the second time through the lineup, these hitters were, getting a feel for our pitchers.
Right.
And they would make that, I don't want to call it a comeback because it's just the second time through the lineup. So
right, yeah.
They would kind of figure it out a little bit more, and then they would start to put runs on the game in the 4th, 5th, 6th inning, and we would see our leads evaporate. And that's rough, man. That's a rough way to go. And to have to face Coastal Carolina, one of the top teams in the country, not just the Sun Belt, but in the country, to close out your season is not ideal, right? But hey, this is a great way to go in there. And I mean, can you imagine? Just imagine for a second. Don't laugh at me. Just imagine you go in there and you sweep Coastal Carolina, and you think, "Damn, what a way to close out the season." Yeah. Can you imagine the ripples that would put through the Sun Belt Conference?
Yeah.
Say, holy crap, I can't believe that just happened. So the season's not over. They can still go in there and really make a headline to close it out and send our seniors out the right way. And, really like end the season with as much of a smile as you can put on your face, given with the overall record and the fact that you're not going to be in the SBC tournament means, you can still do something that makes you feel good inside.
And we just honored 8 seniors for baseball, and I really hate too that those 8 will not get to play on this new field. I mean, if you're watching, the press box is going up. I mean, they're way ahead of what I think that I would have expected where they would be. So, switching over to softball, we discussed that a lot already. I'm just going to run over the scores, but we've already talked everything we need to. But they beat Coastal in the opening game for them, second round of the tournament, since they got a bye. On Thursday of last week, they beat Coastal 2-1. The very next day, they beat South Alabama and the pitcher of the year 3-2. And then they lost in the championship game, as we discussed, 1-0. And other than what you have, that's all I have for taking it around the herd.
Yeah, this is just one cool note, right, that I saw over the past couple of days. The Music City Collegiate League, right?
Yep.
I think Brooklyn Ulrich is going to go play for the Smoky Mountain Reign already, I believe is where she's going to go. Well, the same team, the Smoky Mountain Reign, announced yesterday or the day before maybe that our very own Grace Chelleman is going to be the head coach this year for the Smoky Mountain Reign in the Music City Collegiate League summer. I guess it's just a summer team, type deal. Yeah. But what a cool opportunity for Grace. You immediately graduate, exhaust your playing eligibility, and you get your first head coaching gig in a summer league. You got to think this is a great opportunity to get some eyeballs on you from other NCAA coaches to see, what you've got. And having the Megan Smith Lyon coaching tree branch out, that's good. That's cool, man. That's super cool. And I haven't seen anything officially, right? But even Grace alluded to this, that it appears that our very own Cam Mahalis is going to be an assistant coach alongside Grace with the Smoky Mountain Reign. So a very Thundering Herd feel on that collegiate team, or that collegiate summer league team.
And I think one of their opponents, another team in that league, has another player from the Herd. I just don't think that it's been announced, but it seems to me like when we were discussing some things, not when you were in, but with the parents of the softball, I cannot remember who it is, so I don't want to say, but I think that there is somebody playing for another team in that league.
Yeah. So. Well, cool, man. That's just cool news. So I'm excited for Grace. I'm glad she gets to lead a team. It's a pretty cool opportunity for Cam too, considering she still gets to come back and play for the
Yeah.
Herd. But awesome, man. I've learned. I've been trying to. I guess since we talk about softball a lot on the Twitter account, like, you know, how the algorithm is, it's like, well, you talk about softball, you must like everything about softball. So I've learned that there's like a Florida league down here too, and they've got some pretty cool teams that are fairly close to my area. Like there's one in Bradenton and Sarasota and stuff like that. And so, you know, maybe we'll have an opportunity to get some players to be a part of the Florida softball league too. And, you know, I can catch some of those games at times and, you know, be able to watch our players play outside of the Herd, because that would be pretty cool. But if you got nothing else, man, let's take it out of here.
No, so whether you see us over at the Cam, whether you see us at the Dot, whether you see us at the Joan, or whether you see us ponying up $1 for every win that we had in softball last year and earmarking that with the Thunder Trust to go to a softball NIL, no matter where you see us, we're going to be screaming, go Herd.
Go Herd. It's the ThunderCast. We'll see you next week. Later.